This is Phantom Power.
Episode 13.
James Bond.
Welcome to another episode of Phantom Power, the podcast about sound in the arts and humanities.
Who are you?
I'm Mac Hagood.
I'm Chris Cheek.
And today we have a very unusual episode because I get to interview Chris.
Yay!
Chris has brought in a program that he produced for the legendary community radio station in London, Resonance FM, based on your travels in Madagascar. Actually, 2 trips you took, right?
That's right. 1987, 1993. Yeah.
Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about this show?
It was originally broadcast on the BBC, and there was some format things that got in the way of it being a longer show on the BBC, and I wanted to let some of the recordings play on a little bit more than they could do in the original.
And Resonance was much more of a sort of free-form kind of space where you could let something like that stretch out, right?
It was pretty emergent as a station at that point, but also, yeah, the BBC wanted to cut me distinctly to just under half an hour.
And why Madagascar? Maybe we should start off with, where is Madagascar?
Madagascar is off the east coast of Africa. It's in the Indian Ocean. 4th largest island on the planet. 90% unique in flora and fauna.
Yeah.
Really extraordinary mixtures of people who came from Polynesia, down the Omani Arab coast, from southern, particularly southwest India. Pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Did I mention pirates yet?
No, you haven't.
There were several pirate bases in Madagascar.
Yeah, and the musical traditions that resulted from that mix are really, really incredible.
They are. And the people are really incredible.
So what we're going to hear, I've heard a little bit of it already. It's gorgeous music and really some delicious sounds recorded just delectably. I just really love these recordings. And sort of what interests me beyond, this sonic travelogue that you're presenting to us is just the fact that I'm going to hear the you that I didn't know from 20 years ago. And then you're also going to sort of hear yourself, the person that you used to be back then.
Yeah, that's why I brought this. I mean, I brought it because we've been talking in so many different ways about listening, about paying attention to the sounds that are around you, the things that are at the edges of our attention, and really concentrating on those. It felt like it was in conversation with so many of the other programs that we've made.
Great. Well, so maybe what we should do is just, let it roll. Check in and debrief.
We'll stop.
Okay. This is Mountain, River, Rail, and Reef by Chris Cheek.
Mountain, River, Rail and Reef. A field sound narrative. Monday, March the 13th, 1993. It's so hard to see out of those distortionary plastic lozenge-shaped windows. We're flying inland over the northwestern coast of Madagascar now. An island of ancestors, ghost voices. And below, the countryside is veined and rutted by streams and rivers. Each delta stained red by silt deposits bleeding out into the Mozambique Channel. Outcrops of rock and tiny villages of no more than a half dozen buildings rise into focus. long-horned cattle, zebu, being driven along dirt tracks, turn onto otherwise empty stretches of tarmacked road. Further inland, more and more carts and then cars become visible. A hustle and bustle of peopled activities, thickening towards the capital, Antananarivo. On the trip into the city centre, I'm told by my mirror-shaded taxi driver that the rainy season has already been and gone. Red-bricked houses with pierced wooden balconies are baking in the golden late afternoon sun. Groups of children, one chases a metal hoop with a stick, are running home from school through crowded narrow streets. They dance in pungent clouds of steam from blackened pots where rice is cooked at roadside stalls. Tanna, as it's called, is high up on the central plateau of this, the fourth largest island in the world. It combines a huge central market square, or zoma, facing onto the train station, a couple of lakes, once colonial hillside suburbs, and a spreading girth of makeshift encampments. Most weekends, somewhere in these mountains, you'll find the hiragash, or Songs of the Malagasy, taking place. It's like a friendly match or flighting between local singers, dancers and musicians and a visiting troupe from out of town. An in-the-round roller coaster of folk performance, from chaos to pathos, including prototypical rap, improvisatory cabaret, martial dances, and a somewhat rough band. Each group performs twice, and a typical performance lasts about an hour. Towards the end of each round of the hiragash, a near riot of fanfares featuring those highly over-enthusiastic drummers breaks out. Everybody keeping themselves going with delicious fish samosas dipped in piri-piri sauce. Monday, March 22nd. I'm leaving the capital and heading for the southwest of Madagascar, where the music, the peoples, and the ways are still far less well known. The train rumbles its sleepers through cornfields, dotted with pink periwinkles and scalloped rice paddies fitting snugly into the mountainsides. At every station there's a throng of gesticulating people selling fruit and sausages through open windows to the passengers inside. I got out at Ansira Bay, the place of big salt. Walked up to a highland lake nearby, jade water edged by steep white cliffs. Then cut directly west in a taxi Bruce. Well, that's an open-back pickup truck with a canopy, nearly always holding more passengers than is really comfortable. In a bar along the way, for a welcome stretch, I heard the dancing sound of a cabosse. It's a sort of box mandolin, strummed with a flexible reed. The cabossist incorporates the striking of a bass string into his playing, whilst a young boy uses a recycled can, holding rice, as a shaker. The end of this road, or certainly as far as the bus goes. The onward road was washed out weeks ago by torrential rain. It's one of the hottest and most humid places on the island. Miandrivaz translates as waiting for a wife. Well, I'm here hoping for a boat. Pouring down out of the surrounding mountains, a giant river runs zigzag towards the sea. As I walk along its banks, under the mango trees, the evening air cools, and heavy rain onto corrugated roofs begins. In the half hour or so of dawn light, I'm sitting on a balcony, listening to this small town waking up. Men are hollowing out trees to fashion boats. Goats and sheep hold a rally at the podium in the town square. And there's a large insect trying to make passionate overtures or kill itself against my microphone. One of the endearing features of this lodging house is that when I empty the wash basin, by some freak of the plumbing system, an airlock, perhaps, creates a phantom drummer rising from the plug hole. All day we followed the river Siribini's currents in a small dugout canoe. Storks and herons perched out on those floes, fishing from nests of twisted weed, and each night we camped out on the riverbank in makeshift tents made from cut bamboos. Sometimes we'd simply drift. Gliding down through rainforest in silence, having been warned not to speak if I saw anything unusual. To do so would be taboo.
This is just incredible stuff. I did a lot of backpacking in the 1990s myself, and around East and Southeast Asia. And these scenarios that you're painting are so familiar, right? You got to get in the back of the pickup truck to go somewhere, and then you wait for the boat, and maybe the boat's going to come this evening, or maybe it's going to come tomorrow, or what. You just got to kind of wait. Or maybe the day after that. But the thing that I did not experience is, you keep making these little pit stops at these places where you have to wait, but there are these killer musicians that are just making the most incredible music in these places. And that's something that I wish I had experienced in my travels. I definitely heard a lot of great music, but not just sort of at these rest stops.
There seem to be musicians everywhere, and it was what you do while you're waiting. But a lot of people who were in the traveling party, if you like, weren't particularly interested. They were kind of impromptu rest stop cafes, just like you're describing.
Yeah.
And now I'm remembering almost certainly most of this was on a Sony Walkman Pro cassette recorder with a tiny little microphone, and I would say to people, do you mind if I put my recorder out? And they would be, yeah, sure, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But because I put my recorder out, everybody else would suddenly get interested.
Yes.
So they would be then listening to what this traveler, this vazar, as they say, this stranger, was finding interesting about this music that they were taking for granted.
Yes. I've had that exact same experience with my own field recordings, and you pull out the recording and people are like, wait a minute, is there something I should be listening to here? Why is this strange guy from far away interested in this?
It was very, very, very interesting. And the musicians would also say thank you afterwards, as if, that they were suddenly being taken seriously as somebody who had something to bring to the situation rather than just being used as background. Everyone would, as they, in contemporary parlance, lean in.
Yeah.
And there were, sometimes there was a bit of applause, and it was like it's like I'd staged an impromptu concert by putting my tape recorder down, which I found incredibly difficult to fathom. It was full of so many paradoxes.
Well, speaking of, things that are difficult to fathom and paradoxical when it comes to recording, one other thing I was thinking about is we're both sitting here next to each other listening to this, and I'm imagining everything that's going on,
right,
while you're remembering everything that's going on. So I'm just kind of wondering what it's like for you to be sitting here and listening to something you made 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's a super interesting question. It's as if sound, and particularly recorded sound, can act as a time portal. It's very odd for me to listen to my own voice too. Mm-hmm. Because although you might not hear it, my voice has changed a lot, partly by being here in the US for such a long while. So I'm listening to a very different kind of performance of British masculinity from a very different moment in time, from a different moment in my life, but also a different post-colonial context.
So you raised that question of the post-colonial context. So I know that since I was backpacking and making field recordings, I've been exposed to a lot of things and read a lot of things that have made me look back on those activities in the early 90s in a different way. Thinking about the fact that I was following in the footsteps of colonialists who probably gave me the privilege to be able to be so mobile and to visit these places. And then just as they extracted certain things of value, I, with my recorder, was extracting, aspects of their culture and taking them out of context and bringing them back with me.
Right.
And so I have a sort of, feeling of discomfort around some of that.
Me too.
That I never had before. So I was wondering what you thought about that.
But I'm really glad to hear you raise it, because those discomforts register for me really powerfully. They registered at the time, and they register even more strangely now, because I'm listening to the sound that I produced from those discomforts at a 2-decade distance.
Yeah. And it's a complex issue, because you also had the experience of bringing cassette recordings that were made by earlier Western travelers and playing those for people there. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, French missionaries. Actually, the recordings released on the Okora label are really beautiful recordings from this French label, Okora. And I literally would arrive in a small village, and people would come and talk to me, where are you coming from? What are you up to? What are you interested in? And I was, particularly in the second time I visited, somewhat on a mission, not a missionary, but I was on a mission because I was particularly interested in recordings that I'd heard of forms of poetry, song poetry, that were used for healing purposes in the southwest of the island. So my whole journey was to go there to try to hear some of this. And people would come, I would play them a little bit of this recording. They'd put on the headphones, because there was no speaker on a Sony Walkman Pro, and their faces would light up, and then they'd start to laugh. It's like, oh my God, I remember this stuff, some of them would say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a little bit along the lines of having people at the road stop get interested in the music, the local music. This was also a moment at which people registered that somebody from outside was really interested in a cultural an aspect of their culture. So I'm with this Malagasy couple traveling down a river, and one night we stop. We make benders out of the bendable branches at the riverside, and a Malgache guy walks past holding a crocodile's jaws shut in one hand and doing a breath rhythm like and I copied him. As he went past, I just did exactly the same thing back. And the next morning, this couple were alive with questions of like, where did you learn that stuff? And I said, what stuff? And they said, this rhythmic stuff. And I said, I don't know. It's, I do strange things with my voice. So we arrived at a village the following night, and they disappeared. I sat and looked after the boat and brought the entire village with them and asked me to do a performance. So I had to do this kind of really weird, impromptu sort of sound poetics, voice, rhythm performance. And then the villagers all went away, and they came back down with their cassette machine and played me examples of what you're about to hear. And we went on down the river, and we got to this place, and all these people showed up, and because word had gone out in the forest from village to village that there was this guy who was particularly an expert in or interested in this kind of interlocking voice performance. And that's what happened.
That's amazing.
After 4.5 intense days on this river, we arrived at Bello. And there, in a moonlit courtyard, I witnessed 9 young men perform a vocal music that I'd never heard before. They referred to it as kanyaki, rapid interlocking rhythms made with the voice. It's hard work keeping it going for long, and they produce this extraordinary style by a kind of whiplash pecking movement of the upper body to project their open breath. They'd fall apart into whoops of laughter. Stop. Have a cigarette and a drink. Strictly lemonade for all of them except the chorus master who preferred rum. And then start again. I journeyed on down the south coast for several days. Firstly in a brig out of Morundave, then a dugout canoe with a single patchwork sail, or laken, mostly to villages only accessible by boat. Bevat, and over the Waka, Salar and Chifutra, the fishing villages of the Vase. It was ravishingly calm, surfing over the coral, listening to what the Malagasy call the of the colours of the sea, or simply rowing when the wind stayed put. You can get some inkling of the philosophy of these parts of the island if you know what their place names mean. Take Chifutra. When you walk through it, barefoot on the red earth, you might as well be strolling through a firing kiln. But the name means not hot. Typical Malagasy sense of humour. I'd brought a little tape recorder with me and a copy of some of the recordings made along this coastline in the 1960s. Whenever I could, if it seemed appropriate, I played this tape to someone in a village and asked if there were any people still singing such songs. More often than not, they got quite excited. They'd call their friends over and asked if I could make a copy and send it to them for the archive of their local school, for example. "Listen to this," they'd say. "It's that old song poetry from the 1960s.
Nana uzo, lina wanine favali, chimalai patine ranja fuzak, lamande animi ula kulak, ikalu wanikulu demandi, fahashinja kulu hanje kulu, katonu nanikulu demandi, fanarandulu kuluae. La nivulari huwe nana uzo. Puriya la kamaru anundalara nundalara ha benene tane la karu benene chitene.
Ifati is almost as close as Madagascar gets to a resort. One of the tourist villages around which the developments are gathering is called Mora Mora. Slowly, slowly, or take it easy. I stayed in Mangili. It's a small place set back from the beach, sea-fronting plush, rum and squid a la Creole bungalows where strangers like me are expected to rest. Not that I was any less of a stranger for all that. In the evenings, there's a huge, roughly fenced open-air bar where local people gather to drink and dance the minutsk. This might sound like a bit of a low or no fidelity recording. In fact, my microphone placed directly on the bar picked up exactly what it sounded like. Just a few hundred yards away, there are groups of young musicians promenading in the villages, playing acoustic versions. They sling large box-like mandolinis around their shoulders. The instruments come in several different sizes, roughly small, medium and large. And this passionate, quirky music is led by exuberant singers, accompanied by some virtuoso football whistling. It can go on for hours.
And that's it for this episode of Phantom Power. All the recordings you heard today are by CRIS, with the exception of that extract from Possession and Poetry in Madagascar, recorded by Bernard Koechlin in 1969. Today's episode was produced by CRIS and MAC Hagood. Mountain, River, Rail, and Reef was produced by Phil England and Tom Wallace for Resonance FM, the world's first radio art station, as part of 1998's Meltdown Festival at the South Bank Center, curated by John Peel. The BBC broadcast some of this material on Radio 3 as The Music of Madagascar, produced by John Thornley. And by the way, it won the Sony Gold Radio Award for Specialist Music Program of the Year back in 1995. You can subscribe to our show at phantompod.org or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love it if you'd rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at Phantom Pod. Thanks to our intern, Gina Moravec. Phantom Power is produced with support from the Robert H. and Nancy J. Blaney Endowment, the Miami University Humanities Center, and the National Endowment for the Humanities.